Question 28 said the graph of a line is shown. What is the equation of a line that is perpendicular to the line shown and goes through the point 3, negative 1? So the point 3, negative 1, if I go to the right 3 and then I go down 1, so the point is right here. So I want to make sure that it goes through this point, and I want to make sure it's going to be perpendicular to this. Perpendicular, remember, means crosses at a right angle. So my equation is going to look, or my line should look something like this. I mean, not very accurate, but at least I'm just getting an idea that that's what it should look like. They should intersect at a right angle, but it has to go through this point 3, negative 1. Okay? So the first thing I need to do is I need to find the slope of the given line. So I want to find the slope of this line. And because we have a graph, we can just count and do the rise over the run. So I can pick any 2 points on my line, and remember, pick good points, points that cross at grid lines. So like this to me looks like a good point, and so does this. So I'm just going to count my rise. So I would rise 1, 2, 3, so that's a positive 3. And then I would count my run, so I'd start here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Remember, when you're counting rise over run on a graph, make sure you always check your scale, right? My scale on my x-axis, every line stands for 1, so I was able to count 1, 2, 3. And check your scale also. On my y-axis, the scale was 1. It went 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I was able to count 1, 2, 3 for my rise. And on my x-axis, my scale was also 1s. So when I counted, I was able to count 1, 2, 3, 4. So that means that the slope of this line right here, that line has a slope of 3 over 4. So if I want a line that's perpendicular to that one, this blue line has to have a slope of negative 4/3. Because if you remember, perpendicular lines, the slopes have to be opposite signs. So since this one was positive, this one had to be negative, and they're the reciprocal of each other. Reciprocal, again, means you flip. It means you flip the numerator and the denominator. Since this was 3/4, this became 4/3. So this line that I'm looking for has to have a slope of negative 4/3. So if I look at my choices here, these are all written in slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form, remember, is y equals mx plus b. And the slope is, again, the coefficient of the x term. And I'm looking for a slope of negative thirds. So I can eliminate a couple of these. I can eliminate d, because this has a slope of positive 4/3. And I can also eliminate c, because that also has a slope of positive 4/3. So I've got it narrowed down now to a and b. Now, based on the just kind of sketch of the graph I drew, it looks like my y-intercept is more likely to be 3 than it is to be negative 5. Because if it had a slope of negative 5, it would cross the y-axis way down here. Okay? But I can double check this and make sure. So I'm thinking my answer is B, but let's double check. I want to make sure that my line has a slope of negative 4/3. So I'm going to put negative 4/3 in for my slope, and it has to go through the point 3, negative 1. So if you remember, we learned something called point slope form, which is y minus y1 equals slope times x minus x1. So I'm going to put my slope of negative 4/3 right here for m, and I'm going to put my x-coordinate of 3 right here, and my y-coordinate negative 1 right here, because I know that it has to go through the point 3, negative 1. So I get y minus my y-coordinate, which is negative 1, equals my slope, which is negative 4/3, times x minus, and my x-coordinate, it has to go through the x-coordinate of 3. So I'm going to put a 3 there. Now this is point slope form, and all the choices they give me up here in slope-intercept form. So what I have to do is I need to simplify. So first, this y minus a negative 1, I can rewrite that as y plus 1. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to distribute. I'm going to distribute the negative 4/3 to the x and the negative 4/3 to the negative 3. So negative 4/3 times x is just negative 4/3 times x. And then this negative 4/3 times this negative 3, well, I know a negative times a negative is going to be positive, so I can put a plus there. And then I'm going to multiply the 4/3 times the 3. So I'm going to simplify this a little bit more. So I get y plus 1 is equal to negative 4/3 x plus 4/3 times 3 is just equal to 4. So this is just plus 4. And now I'm going to subtract 1 from both sides. So I get y, this is equal to 0, equals negative 4/3 x plus 3. So this is now in slope-intercept form. So I can see that it's going to cross the y-axis at 3, and it's going to have a slope of negative 4/3. So let's go back up and look at our choices. And that was, in fact, letter B. And then just to kind of review, perpendicular lines, remember, have slopes that are opposite reciprocals, right? Perpendicular, opposite, so this one was positive, this one was negative, and then they were reciprocal, so you flip that numerator in the denominator. If you have a question about parallel lines, though, remember, parallel lines have the same slope. So if they would have asked for a line parallel to this one, it would have also had to have a slope of 3/4. Okay, so parallel lines have the same slope.